work. Our parents, and you hate to say this, and it might be controversial, and I'm gonna make a clip about it. Our parents and older generations of black and brown people were slaves at these jobs. Whatever master told you to do, you did it. You don't care if it went against your beliefs. You don't care about none of that. You were gonna do it because it's like, I need this good old job. So our generation is able to say, I'll do what needs to be done in the job, but in the same breath, that goes against who I am as a person, not doing that. Or no, I saw a video of this dude, the corporate baddie.
Oh,
And
I
it was
think yes, I think
and
I
he
know.
did and he was doing and they were doing talking about something. Well, we're gonna be setting up, we're gonna need to go a little bit over. And he was closing his laptop down. He said, no, it's 5 o'clock, it's time for me to go. And she was like, well, no, we're just gonna only take 30 minutes. He said, no. All right, y'all, what's going on? It's your boy Izzy Baker. What's up, y'all? So today it's a little different. All right, now, yeah, I used to hear ads run through my stuff for other people. All right, this is probably the first real time the ad is for me. All right, so P.S.A, Prodigy Sport Advantage Stations, has expanded far beyond just the podcast. It is now a writing service. All right, and at that, a ghostwriting service. So we do it anonymously and take care of your needs. All right, homework assistant, product and profile descriptions, grant writing, resumes, cover letters, templates, books, ghostwriter book too. Anything you can think of, articles, all that good stuff. PSA, the Ghostwriter Solution, can do it. So go over to PSAthepodcast.com and you can see all the services there with all their descriptions. Okay, because I know I missed some. And also you can reach out to me at theprodigyperspective@gmail.com and we can take care of all of that for you too. Peace. All right, what is going on, party people? We are back for another hot fire episode. We're getting closer and closer to the end of the year. Can you believe it? And this is going to be the first season that actually goes over into the new year. So, like I said, I keep throwing it out there. 4th of July is the last 4th of July. I'm nuts. The January 4th is the last episode of season 7. And I apologize for not doing a live stream this past Monday, but honestly, I'm gonna be honest, real honest, why I didn't do it. It wasn't a guest. It wasn't me. It wasn't nothing worth talking about, honestly. Because, the Mondays are just whatever's popping. I talk about it, but it wasn't nothing to me I just felt needed to be talked about. I just did. Now, I'm not going to do that often, but, that's why I didn't do it, for those that asked. All right. Now, this week's episode is going to be a really, I always said it every week, but I think this is going to be a good one because it's the right amount of pettiness, seriousness, and statistics. So let me get into this week's meme, and then you're kind of gonna see where we're going with it. All right. This week's meme reads, saying, "Yeah, I'm not doing" is a form of self-care. Inspiration for this week comes from a few different things. So the first one, inspiration comes from a quote by Brené Brown that says, "Authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen." And then the other one comes from James 1:22. It says, which says, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourself. Do what it says. And I'm gonna go more in depth with that as we go along, so you can kind of get a better idea. All right. Now let's get into this week's happy hour. Everyone's favorite topic, or favorite segment, I should say. All right, so this week's happy hour question, or topic that I want to briefly discuss is, and I could have waited till later, but seeing as, a lot of y'all, this is kind of a work-related episode, and some of y'all are getting ready for Secret Santa and, all that good stuff. What do you want for Christmas? Now, of course, if you don't celebrate Christmas, then that's fine too, but, we can go so many different ways with that. For me, All I want for Christmas is for people to stop calling me if you're not talking about no money on. Y'all call my phone and just be holding it. I don't care about none of that. I don't care about none of you talking about. Talk about some money. Now, I'm not gonna say I'll do anything for money because a lot of people do anything for money and it shows. But I'm not that type of person. But I think a lot of times we get caught up. And don't get it twisted. It's good to check on people. Send me a text. At this point in my life right now, just right now, send me a text. And I say that because my season is ending. The ghostwriting service that I have, P.S.A, the ghostwriting solution, it's ghostwriting. And I'm not overwhelmed. I don't want to speak that over myself, but it's a lot of stuff going on in a good way. And yeah, if you ain't talking about no money, don't call me. That's it. Now, I know some people may say that's a little rude. I can see that. But this is where I'm at right now. And it kind of lines again what we're talking about. You know, the whole logic of being real, being authentically yourself. I'm being authentically me. And the thing when you're authentically yourself is people have to respect it. Even if they never tell you that, they have to. Because even if you're, kind of a douche, right? People gonna say, hey, at least he or she is who they are. Versus you living a facade or being a fake person. And of course, with social media, it's easy to be a fake person. So it is what it is with that. But all right, y'all, that's enough of me rambling today. If you ain't got your Christmas list together, Santa is waiting. But I have a great guest today, and we're going to get into a lot of different conversations and a lot of different topics. So I hope y'all are ready for that. So let me go ahead and introduce my guest for today. What is going on?
Hey, hey, hey. How you doing? I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that we're going to have like a wonderful discussion today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now I can see your name. The audio people can't. So can you tell the people what's your name, where you from, and where do you live now?
So my name is Venchele. I currently reside in Maryland, but to answer that question, where you're from, that's always the tricky part because I was born in the States, but I grew up in Haiti because my family is from Haiti, Martinique, and France. So I spent most of my formative years there. And then I came back to the States, I think early 2000s, and I've been here ever since. So, yeah.
Okay. So what was it like growing up? You grew up in Haiti.
hmm
What was that like? I just feel like it just would be just so like exotic in a good way. Well,
I don't know if I could say, well, yes, I could say it wasn't exotic. I had a great childhood, living on an island. But in terms of the busyness, the bustling or the hustle, the grind, if nothing else, it's always been the same for me. Even as a kid, I always like to do things. I always like to stay busy. And then I had parents who made sure of that too. So, it was good living. I think, if nothing else, the pace of life is much slower,
hmm.
than in the States. And I think that I'm trying to get back to that now as an adult, because let's face it, adulting can be, has its perks, but it also has its
Right.
challenges. And so, I'm trying to get back, to a slower pace, not just at my job, but also, in my business and just the way I show up in the world. Because I think sometimes we glorify busyness, but
Hmm.
then sometimes you can be busy doing something that you don't love. And I try to be in the business of always doing something that I love. And if I find myself deviating from that path, then it's time for me to reconnect with my inner self and say, okay, well, what can I do better? Which road can I take? Because this road that I'm on may not be the best for me. So it was really good to hear you talk about Dr. Brené Brown. She's actually one of the people that, one of the people I follow. I have read some of her books, and I'm sure there are there are also Black women who have spoken about these issues as well. But it just so happens that some of her work has definitely resonated with my mindfulness practice, for sure.
Okay, good stuff. We getting started with the good stuff already. So before we get even further, I want you to tell the people what it is you do and tell us more about it.
So, I'm someone who has various interests, but my background is specifically in public health. I think I was sharing with you earlier. I'm currently doing a doctorate. I am in a doctoral program, studying public health leadership with a working interest in behavioral health and substance abuse. Now, I don't know what my dissertation topic is going to be on yet, but it's definitely going to cover, hopefully, cover that topic. Um, and what was the other question you asked? I want to make sure that I'm answering all the questions that you asked.
What just basically what it is that you do,
Oh,
and then,
oh,
yeah.
oh, oh. And I have a side business. I forgot to mention that. So, yes. So, I currently have a 9 to 5, working in the public health space, but I also have a side business called Pathway Coach Writing, where I help, edit and provide content feedback, to clients, like on any, written materials, whether it be a manuscript, a textbook, a memoir, a novel, even emails too, and definitely, well, as you know, AI related content as well. So I provide feedback on that as well. If nothing else, I put a human touch behind it. So that's what I do. And I'm very passionate about this, just because that was one of the reasons why I decided to even have a side business in writing, coaching, and editing, is because there aren't many people of color in that space. At least
Hmm.
if there used to be a huge number, the number has slowly but surely dwindled, because there are like mergers. You have these companies, these big companies or publishing companies merging together or acquiring another company. So the competition is fierce, and so it kind of leaves us at the margin. And I realized that it shouldn't be that way. And I think that's the reason why I decided to be part of the movement, to again, to amplify our voices in that space, and to make sure that people know, just like in the movies, representation matters. I wanted to be part of that movement for sure.
Definitely, definitely. And I like how you talked about adding the human touch to AI, because what people fail to realize is they think, oh, AI can do it all. And the thing is, and I said, it's like, I heard one writer say that I follow on YouTube. He was saying it's like AI is like the writer's Swiss Army knife. I said it
Hmm.
was like Batman's utility belt. Like the utility belt has all of these different tools and gadgets and can do so much, but it still needs somebody behind it. So, because the utility belt can't beat, you know what I'm saying, help beat up the bad guys and do throw out the grappling hook. So it needs somebody to still be behind it to get it going. So I want people to know that too. They think, oh, I can just AI everything. And plus, especially for those of y'all in school, because I did people's homework for years and that. No, you still need the systems are in place now. So all that AI you think you're getting away with, you might have got away with it last semester, but you ain't gonna get away with it now. So keep
Exactly.
keep that in mind. All
And
right.
also, to add to what you said too, for the AI content piece, um, you also have to be mindful of plagiarism, because sometimes you don't know where this information is coming from, and sometimes AI does not give you the reference, and even if it gives you a reference, you got to check to make sure that's actually a real reference.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of extra work, and people don't talk about that, because that's not those little kinks that we're talking about, like, they don't sell, and so
Hmm.
that's why you don't really hear about that.
Right. And people miss out on so much.
Right.
So yeah, we definitely gonna touch back on that later. But now, so as you stated, you're a writer, you got extensive background in public health.
Mm.
And how do you see the intersection of this with mental health in today's society?
That's a very good question, and I don't think I have a clear answer for this question right now, because I'm trying to figure out the intersection, or the intersection of public health, mental health, and writing in that space. I think, if nothing else, it's a bigger question on making sure that if you're gonna talk about mental health, that it comes from a place of authenticity,
Hmm.
and really, and that's something I always talk to my clients about, is really not focusing on the numbers, but focusing on figuring out how to connect with your audience, because if you're faking it, people are going to notice,
For sure.
right? And I think that's the reason why that it's so critically important when you're writing about mental, at least even for me, is really trying to focus on adjusting expectations, because obviously what I'm going through, right, mental health wise, it's not going to resonate with everyone. And I think also the bigger piece behind that is really trying to build trust. And so the question that keeps coming up even in this conversation is like, how do you build trust with your audience, right, around mental health?
Absolutely. Now, this is a great segue as we now transition to the next segment, which is what does this have to do with mental health? Now, so with that, you say made a comment before I ask my first question. You made a comment about, getting your trust of your audience. People know when you're being authentic, and people like honesty. And
Yeah.
as I stated it with the whole Christmas thing and kind of with the whole meme for today, like when you say like, yeah, I'm not doing that, or people love people who are themselves, even though of course there's gonna be people that hate you, but secretly they respect you even if they don't tell you. And I don't care what nobody says. They because I mean it's people I don't like, but if they're upfront and who they are, I just feel like how can you not, you know what I'm saying, respect that. So being somebody who, as again, is a public health leader, and I want to ask, and of course, with the whole mental health thing. So, how do you perceive the role of mental health awareness as far as in professional settings?
Hmm. I think it's a bigger discussion on when you're looking at opportunities, you got to be intentional about these opportunities and figure out whether or not these individuals that you're talking to are are going to be open or embrace people with, mental health challenges. But let's just not stop. Let's not just focus about mental health. We should also be discussing people with disabilities, whether it's
Mm,
visible or invisible. I think that's the reason why in the job market, it's so critically important. And I'm not immune to that because I'm very careful. I don't just create a spreadsheet with a list like of companies that I want to follow with the names of people I want to talk to. But you really want to try to figure out where do these topics lie in the public consciousness. And so I think that's why, like, when you're looking for a job, and I'm even giving myself that advice too, is really being intentional about opportunities, but also trying to connect with people who could potentially be accomplices, because not everywhere is going to be perfect. Not
right.
everyone is going to be accepting of folks with disabilities or with mental health or with mental health needs. So finding those key, I'm not going to call them allies, because allies, and one of my friends told me that today, you can have an ally who's only here with you during the good times, but you
Mm,
want an accomplice where they're with you through thick and thin, because the ally could leave you once things go wrong.
right.
So finding these key people in the workplace is so important, because that's what's going to shape up your experience there.
Okay, and I like the word, the definitions and the breakdowns, because even with me, I would think that naturally, I think we all would think that's the same thing. But like I said, it even makes sense because even like you said, an ally could come and not even just on bad stuff. They may just was only there with you for a season. They were
Mm,
only meant to be here just, oh, you came to this part of the like a video game. You came to this part of the video game. Okay, you done went to the next level, so I have to stay and wait for the next person to come. So I think
mm,
that's a good way to look at it.
yeah.
All right. So now, when it comes, of course, everyone knows my audience is young millennial men. So all of this information that I has that how this correlates with mental health, and this comes from a one source, which is young men's attitudes and behavior in relation to mental health. Okay, so this is implications from the development of online mental health services. So the first source says technology use and help seeking. Young men are heavy users of technology, especially for entertainment and connecting with friends. They also use technology to find information and support. The study revealed a preference among young men for self help and action oriented strategies over seeking professional help. Most survey participants have sought help for a problem online and were satisfied with the assistance they received. Now, this goes back to the AI thing because AI is trained by humans, but in the same breath, you have to test, as they say, test the spirits, because you may be getting information that isn't right. And then now you sitting here looking crazy. didn't internalize something that was not how it was supposed to be. So as
Yeah.
always with mental health, I'm always an advocate for therapy, life coaches and all that good stuff. But again, there are platforms, which licensed professionals have been on this platform saying, therapy isn't for everyone in every season. So in case you may need to find a good book, a good podcast, a good whatever, but make sure whoever you listen to, they're backed up. And a lot of these, when I say backed up, they're backed with, credible sources, whether it's the person that's on this platform or the sources they refer to. So keep that in mind. The second one says mental health difficulties and help seeking rates. Young men in Australia show poor mental health compared to their female counterparts. It says which higher rates of completed suicide, antisocial behavior, and substance misuse. Only 13% of young men aged 16 to 24 seek help with experienced mental health difficulties, as opposed to 31% of young females. And this is the lower tendency. Okay, so now keeping that in mind, as we already knew this, and although that's Australia, it still aligns with the United States, and especially in the Black and Brown community, where women will go to get therapy before a man will, and will, like I said, men will look up stuff online. And I feel like a lot of times with men, we'll probably open the private chat on our phones. We don't want we do it. I feel like men in general are so what's the word I want to say, are so in fear of what people would think about them when it comes to their mental health. They would literally open a private app on the phone or the private tab on the phone and search up things about mental health because they wouldn't even want anybody to know that they were having mental health issues or struggles. You know what I'm saying? And my take on that is, again, you being in public health in that arena, excuse me. Do you see a lot of men who are maybe like kind of closed minded or kind of reserved when it comes to speaking about mental health?
No, not in my sphere of influence. Like the men who are in my sphere of influence, whether it be for personal and professional reasons, have always been direct with me and very open about mental health. I mean, if it's relevant to them, and I think also as you were talking and sharing those statistics, I think if nothing else, I have seen less of a leverage of online platforms where you see men um, taking care of other men, in that sense, like, being a big brother, to other men who have mental health needs. And so that's I don't know how you feel about that, but I think there needs to be more platforms where men can see other, black and brown folks who are going through that so that they feel supported. Because social media, from my experience, like social media, paints a falsified image of happiness, and it can make, if nothing else, the use of social media for a long period of time in a day can make you feel depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because those social media and online networking platforms, whatever you want to call it, their main purpose is to be used to create and maintain authentic connections. But how do I know that for sure? Because there are people who create fake profiles. How do I know that the person behind that picture is real?
Right.
You see, so that's why and I think, like, I'm glad that we're having this discussion, because we need to be mindful of the limitations of social media and online platforms and the importance of those face-to-face interactions. So I would, I feel like I'm saying in so many words, like, yes, there are men out there who may be closed off, but instead of focusing on the problem, let's reframe the challenge. Okay, they may be closed off, but are there online platforms that support these mental health needs? Are there online platforms where they can connect with other Black men going through the same struggle? And what does that look like if those platforms are not already established? And if they are established, where are they? Are they easily
Right.
accessible to them? You see what I'm saying?
Right. And I think a lot of times we get caught up in the red pillars on YouTube, and we'll be here all day
Temporary
talking
fixes.
about it. So now, considering cultural and societal pressures young men face, what advice would you give to them about staying true to their values while navigating the business world?
I would say, again, Conducting informational interviews is a good opportunity,
Okay.
to find out, how people are feeling, like whether people share your values, and whether or not you're a good fit to them. Because as you know, when you're looking for a job opportunity, right? If a man is looking for a job opportunity, they're selectively choosing you, but you're also selectively choosing them.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that you prioritize having informational interviews. And if nothing else, I mean, LinkedIn, and let's face it, LinkedIn, like, people are open. At least most of the people I've reached out to, like, they're pretty open. You can reach out to them, try to schedule a chat, but if not, you can talk to them via text, whatever your preference is. But I think that's an important thing. And then also focusing on quality, over quantity. It's not about the number of people, like having 100 people be on your social platform. It's really trying to figure out, um, like, striking the balance, right? Focusing on nurturing, like, existing relationships, rather than constantly seeking new contacts, because that in and of itself too can impact someone's mental health. Because you could sit here and start comparing yourself and say, oh, like, I just looked at Joe's profile and he was able to reach 25 people, within like 2 weeks, but I was only able to reach like two people. It doesn't really matter, to be honest with you, because you can have 25 people that you reach out to, but none of them can help you. You see,
Right.
so that's why it's so important to focus on quality over quantity, like, especially nowadays when looking for jobs. The typical other thing people talk about is carrying a business card, but that's cliche. You should always have, a business card. If you don't have business card, I just give them my number. I give them an email, just because I think, if nothing else, after the COVID pandemic, with so many people who have lost their jobs, you're really trying to be efficient,
Hmm.
and you're trying to save money. Let's face it. you know and then also to make sure that you bring your friends along,
Hmm.
because that's another thing too. As you're climbing up, always make sure you're looking behind you to see who you can pull up, as well who you can bring with you. So even when you're attending a networking event alone, which, by the way, again, you should be very mindful of these opportunities, right? And make sure that it's not just aligned with your interests, but again, you are surrounded by people who want to see you succeed. Consider going with a friend. Consider going with a friend, because maybe that friend can give you some feedback on what went well and what didn't go well, and how you can improve, the next go around when you attend some of these events. um and then what I would also say, it's important to have a loose plan. Now, I'm a believer, and so I always say to myself, I may make my own plans, but the Lord's will always prevail. But
Right.
I do believe in having a loose plan, though, and so, setting a few goals for yourself before each networking interaction, or event, is also a good idea, because it helps you stay focused, so that you can make the most of each opportunity. And again, the friend that you bring along with you, or those two friends, they will tell you, they'll give you feedback, on what to prioritize, based on just seeing you interact with people too. Those are just some ideas that I'm throwing around. I'm sure there are billions of other ideas, but that's what has worked for me and for some of my male friends. And so I'm kind of sharing the tea with your audience on this. So,
Yeah. No, for sure. I definitely think all that stuff is definitely effective. And even the comment you made about bringing a friend to a networking event, and even me, I do a lot of that stuff by myself, but in
mm,
reality, I should, I just really started getting really, really active on LinkedIn not too long ago. So I want to build as many connections as I can, because you just never know who knows who, and you never know, speaking of tea, there's a positive and negative to this view, this thought I'm going with. So
mm-hmm,
we always say, when people gossiping, right? and you're talking to this person and that person. You don't know who's cool with who. You don't know who talks to who.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know how it's going to get back to this person that you
Right.
did this. But on the flip side, it's the same with positive stuff too, because if you're talking to this person, LinkedIn or wherever you go, and you putting yourself out there, somebody do what you're looking to do, somebody may think of, and then you may be the first person they think of. And they'll say, hey, I know this person who does that now. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Yes.
just something for people to definitely keep in mind.
And also to, to your point, when you were saying that you don't know who knows who, that's a good point that you bring. That's why when you are in those networking events, even if you have something bad to say about someone, I always think about Dave Chappelle. It's when keeping it real goes wrong. Like, you just want to keep you just want to keep that to yourself, because, and I hate to say this, because I'm someone who's very direct and I cut through the fluff. Like, I don't have
Yeah.
time to beat around the bush, because you don't want to waste people's time and you don't want to waste your time. But sometimes keeping it real can go wrong. And so it's
Right.
I think it's good when you feel a certain way about someone, and if you know that there's someone in the room who knows that person, just keep it brief. Just, fake it in that way. Fake it in that way. Like, what did you think about so and so? I thought that this person was great. And then probably come up with two or three things that they did for you, or try to come up with two or three things, and then just leave it at that. Because ultimately, and I'm even looking at this quote, like, that's right in front of me. It says, it's by Keith Ferrazzi, and the quote says, the currency of real networking is not greed but generosity.
Hmm.
So it's the same thing with your words. Be generous with your words, but be generous with kind words about other
Right.
people, because you just don't know.
For sure. All right, so the last mental health source, it says preference for online mental health support. It says when asked about their preferences for receiving mental health information and support through technology, the top choice were websites with information and or fact sheets. 48.1% online clinics, 38.5 multimedia content, and 29.6% and question and answer services via SMS or email, 28.8%. Older males showed a higher preference for websites with information and fact sheets, indicating varied needs and preferences across different age groups. So that's, again, once again, we all about using technology in this good old research, and so keep that in mind. All right, so let's move to the next section, which is I challenge that. And in this section, this is where we kind of challenge what things we talking about, just to give both sides of the ball. All right, so my question to you before I move on to my stuff: how do you think young men can effectively balance their emotional intelligence and mental health needs with the demands of a professional network?
I mean, you not only have to know the rules of professional networking, um, but I think when we're talking about mental health and striking that balance, is really giving yourself a pep talk. You always got to know what the end goal is, because when you're going into some of these events and you don't know what you're trying to get out of it, it increases stress. And you and I both know that not only does it increase stress, but it also increases your anxiety, which is not good for your mental health. So I would say that my advice is usually to give yourself a pep talk. Have sort of like a written mental checklist to ensure that you're in the right mindset. Again, this may include simple things like reminders to smile, take initiative to meet people. And then I think one thing people don't usually talk about, I always tell folks, if you haven't watched Grey's Anatomy, I will always say to folks that I cannot be everybody's Christina Yang or Grace Shepherd. Not everyone is going to jive with you, and I think people never want to talk about that. There's some people you're going to gravitate towards, and there's some people where they may not gravitate towards you, maybe because the universe doesn't want them to play a role right now. It's not a hard no. You may have to, you may collaborate with these folks later on, but just keep an open mind, and don't stress about it, because ultimately you're gonna be talking to people. They're not Jesus. They can't be everything to you, and you won't be everything to them. But really giving yourself a pep talk, having a loose plan, identifying your networking style, knowing the rules of professional networking. I think those uh, uh, those set of objectives, I think, definitely would help ease the anxiety and the stress that comes with networking, definitely in the business workspace.
You know, it's funny because I think you giving all these good old tips, right? And usually we say tips for the end. So you going through the whole episode with them. But let me say this. I
I'm
think
sorry.
no, you good because this I like this. But here's the thing. I think a lot of times people really don't know themselves. And I think
Mm,
that that's where the issue comes from because you made the comment which people don't talk about. What if you go to a job and these people don't like you? And you know, you just don't like that person because I'm fully a full-time ghostwriter now and podcaster.
okay.
But I went to different schools when I was an educator and
Mm-hmm.
it was a one school I remember I had like drama at that school. Like the people literally did not like me. And
Mm.
you know, I've been at schools where I could come, not saying I took advantage sometimes, but I could come in whenever I wanted, call in whenever I wanted,
Thanks for
and I
being
could do,
truthful.
and I, you know, and I, what's the word I want to say? And I could do I was loved. I was nothing I could do wrong. But with the one school that I did work at, which I do know, because you know, people you can say one thing and people can hear something else. And
True.
so I remember Dave Chappelle when Keeping It Real Goes Wrong. Love Dave
Keeping it goes
Chappelle.
on.
I remember someone asked about a position that I was doing, and they asked, "Did I like it?" I said, I love the position. I said, I make more than what I did last year. You know what I'm saying? And they took that and said that I said I make more than you and I do less. And I said to the extent I said I make more than what I did last year, and I don't do as much as I did. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what they heard, and me thinking, oh, I'm just having a good conversation. But as I learned, my mom used to always tell me, you volunteering too much information. They didn't ask you all that. You should have just said,
Mm-mm.
I love what I do. That's it.
I
You
love
know,
your mother, and that's true.
I should have just said, oh yeah, I like what I'm doing. But no, I just had to say that extra information. So I think we can take this to of course, we're talking about the professional setting, but young men in general, we need to stop giving up information that was not asked, and that can go into social media,
Mm-hmm.
date, in an interview. Because sometimes I've talked myself out of jobs before. So
But
yeah,
wait a second, wait a second. You brought up dating. Now, there are some things you may want to tell someone on that first, well, not the first date. The first date is just an introduction. It's the appetizer, right? You haven't even gone through the entree, but the second or the third date,
well, yeah,
you got to say something
yeah,
because, for example, the topic on children, I mean, obviously it's going to come up, but
yeah.
if you are dating someone who doesn't want children but you want children, you definitely want to find out earlier than later, because when you've invested 7 years 8 years of your life to a man or to a woman, and then they're not aligned with your values, they just not aligned, it's bound to create some confusion. It's bound to create some resentment, because people are going to feel like, okay, but you never told me the truth. So it depends. That's why I feel like in each situation you got to gauge who you with, and you got to know the end goal in sight. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just my 2 cents.
No, you're right. You're right. And I even think that even goes along with, spiritual beliefs too. If you're a Christian and this person is an atheist or a Hindu, it's like
And that's
I
not what
feel
you're
like
feeling.
right. And I feel as though it's even, people I think just think that especially at this age, well, we're a little older. I'm a little older now, so not so much now. But I think that people have the mindset of like, oh, well, we in love, so that don't matter. But y'all will be marrying people who don't even have the same views about it's different if you have different views on like music or like food or something like that. But when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
how to spend money, spiritual beliefs. Like you said, you want children, they don't. I think a lot of times people think like, oh, they love me, I can change their mind.
Mm-mm, you
And
cannot. You cannot. I'm sorry. You cannot change them. Because whatever you're seeing during the dating phase, I know they usually say the person you marry is gonna look drastically different or somewhat different to the person that you dated. There's truth to that. And at the same time, if you saw a flaw, That flaw is only going to be amplified when you marry this person. I mean, again, and I'm speaking from the lens of a single person because I've never been married. I'm single as a Pringle. It's just I've lived it vicariously through other people. It doesn't
Mhm.
you can't change them. If they don't want children, they don't want children.
That's
And
it.
that's what I love about men. Well, I don't want to say all men, but most of you are clear and to the point. And like you said, you can say something and the person in front of you may interpret it differently. And I think that's why it's so important to be impeccable with your words and actions. If you say something, you also got to show it. Because after a while, the person is going to have to say, okay, do I really want to stick around with this person? Is this my person? Or do I
Yeah,
need to just, lay low, leave, part ways, and then find my person?
exactly, exactly. So now, based on insights from this article, so it says best ways to ensure authenticity in networking, and this is on texasyoungprofessionals.com. I got a few, but I'm only going to go over two right now. So it says the
Mm-hmm.
first one is conforming to the crowd in business settings. In professional networking settings, merely following the crowd and focus solely on business talk can lead to insignificant outcomes. It's important for young men to focus on building connections and cultivating relationships first, rather than immediately diving into business discussion. This approach requires a balance between personal authenticity and professional networking. So, based on what we talked about thus far, what do you think about that?
Okay, you would have to repeat that again because it broke off.
Oh, it says in professional settings, networking settings, merely following the crowd and focusing solely on business talk can lead to insignificant outcomes. It is important for young men to focus on building connections and cultivating relationships first.
Yes, I agree that they need to focus on building the relationship first. And remember, depending on the nature of the relationship, you're going to yield different outcomes. That's why you always got to think about what you're trying to get from that relationship. I don't believe in superficial networking.
Mhm.
Actually, I don't even use the word networking. I believe in building sustainable, healthy, relationships. But most importantly, as you're building these relationships, the other question we have to ask ourselves is, how are you adding value to that person's life?
Yeah,
Because they taking time, their busy schedules, to be with you. Just like Jay-Z would say, I could be anywhere else in the world, but I'm here with you, in one of his songs. So you have to know what value you're adding to people's lives and what value they adding to your life. And again, because everything is so nuanced, um, it may be that sometimes you end up in relationships where there is no value to be added, but you're just shooting the breeze. This is just someone you go to the mall with. You have different friends for different, for different
absolutely.
things. And it's the same thing for networking. You're gonna rub shoulders with important people, but these important people are gonna have a different impact on your life. They just can't be everything, if that
Exactly.
makes sense.
No, it's good. And it goes to the next one, which it says focusing solely on personal gain. Is the entering into network interactions with the sole intention of gaining something can hinder the development of authentic relationships. Young men should emphasize giving rather than just getting, as authentic connections are built on mutual support and exchange. So it aligns with that, with the standpoint of not just going in. Of course, you do want to go to this event, you're looking for a job, right? But in the
Yeah.
same breath, what if you build a connection with somebody where you are looking for a job, and this may not, I think a lot of times we get so caught up in the present we don't see the future. Because what if we build a connection with somebody and it's like we just, like you said, shooting the breeze, we just cool, and we look up 3 years later they didn't built a multi-million dollar company, and you and them cool, they know what your business ethic, work ethic is like. Now they're like, hey, you want a job? You know what I mean? You just never know.
You never know. That's why it's so important to be kind to people. Always be kind. And actually, there is this quote that I found, because before our session today, because of my mindfulness practice, I reflect a lot. And so
Mhm.
there was this quote that I found literally like right after my meditation. And it says, it's by Michelle Genet. And it says, networking is not just about just connecting people, but it's about connecting people with people, people with ideas, and then people with opportunities. And I
Mm.
think that quote really captures beautifully the broader scope of networking, which goes beyond mere connections, really, to facilitating meaningful interactions and opportunities. So,
No, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, y'all. So let's move into the next segment, which is the weekly sabbatical.
mm.
And this is the time where we know we kind of reflect on some things, as you just talked about reflection. See how we just going right into stuff? So, you're a writer. We discussed that. In your writings, you've explored themes of resilience and communication. Could you share some insights on how these skills are essential for young men in both professional and personal spheres?
I think in general, writing is sits under the umbrella of communication. In order to succeed, in my humble opinion, in this world, you have to learn to be an effective communicator. Now, what does being an effective communicator entail? It doesn't necessarily have to be, you using various big words or eloquent words in a sentence, because again, let's not forget it, people's attention span these days is less than like 5 minutes
Yeah,
literally. So you have to be able to capture people's attention in a short amount of time. And so I think it's so important to invest in opportunities where you can, learn how to express yourself. I mean, if nothing else, podcasting has done this for me as well. Public, it has definitely helped me with public speaking skills. And then learning how to succinctly convey, my thoughts on a given topic. But again, you see, you don't get to use these skills or even improve upon these skills if you don't put yourself out there. So I think, yes, it's critically important to be, you don't necessarily have to be the best writer out there. And I'm using that very loosely because everyone is going to have a different definition on what their best is. But whatever your best is, um, communication should be a number one priority, because that's how transactions are made these days. Whether you're a painter, whether you're a writer, whether you're a businessman, whether you are, part of the personnel, people who are cleaning, after us. Communication. Communication is what ties us all together.
definitely, definitely. So now, in the context of the public health work, what strategy would you suggest for young men who to manage stress and maintain mental health while being let me rephrase that. To manage stress and maintain mental well-being while striving for career success.
I would say really to adjust their expectations.
Mm.
You're not going to be able to swallow the whole ocean, take
Hmm.
on the ocean. um, and so really being intentional about, what you get involved in, doing what you love. And then also, like I've mentioned before in the previous segment, um, shifting your focus towards others. I think if nothing else, that there is value in investing towards others while you're trying to climb the ladder of success. Um, just because they say that studies have shown that, and you don't have to be best friends with these people, but just to be around folks and conversing with them, it actually helps, with people's mental health, because you don't feel alone, you don't feel alienated. And that's the culprit. That's the culprit in mental health. I think, if nothing else, as someone who has gone through it myself, after losing a loved one, the mental health, the culprit of mental health, in my humble opinion, is to make you feel alienated, as if you don't have support. But I want to make sure that your audience knows that they're not alone. You always have support. It's just a matter of asking for the help. And this is something I still, struggle with in a way, asking for help and support. But I've been doing better. And I think that it's so critically important for folks to do that, um, in order to, continue to not only invest in themselves, but making sure that they're doing well, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, for sure. And then by doing that, you are bringing your best self to people.
Right.
You're benefiting it for yourself, but also those in your network benefit from all of the work that you're doing to make sure that you're well as well.
All right, good stuff. All right, so now here I have a few strategies for
That was a
individuals.
mouthful, but I had to say it.
No, you good. I told you this is open platform. I want people to say as much as they want, when
Right.
however they want. All right. So now here are a few strategies for individuals who might struggle with balancing authenticity in professional settings, and this is derived from how to be more authentic at work. Because the main thing is, before I even get into this, the main thing is, I think that like how we talked about, volunteering information and you know but what I like is going back to the meme is when you say, "Yeah, no, I'm not doing that at work." Our parents, and you hate to say this, and it might be controversial, and I'm gonna make a clip about it. Our parents and older generations of black and brown people
Mm-hmm.
were slaves at these jobs. Whatever master told you to do, you did it. You don't care if it went against your beliefs. You don't care about none of that. You were gonna do it because it's like I need this good old job.
Mm-hmm.
So our generation is able to say, I'll do what needs to be done in the job, but in the same breath, that goes against who I am as a person, not doing that. Or no, I saw a video of this dude,
Hmm.
the corporate baddie,
Oh,
and
I
it was
think
a
I, yes, I think
and
I
he did
know.
and he was doing and they were doing talking about something. Well, we're gonna be setting up we're gonna need to go a little bit out over, and he was closing his laptop down. He said, "No, it's 5 o'clock. It's time for me to go." And she was like, "Well, no, it's gonna only take 30 minutes." He said, "No, it's 5 o'clock. You
Mm,
have me here on payroll till 5 o'clock. I have
mm.
things I have to do." You know what I'm saying? In the older days, you would have gotten, exiled out the village if you would have did something like that. So keep that in mind, that it's okay for us to be like that in these jobs. And even some of them, that's why they hate millennials. And even now I saw an article the other day that said millennials are who are keeping remote work going, because I think they wanted to shift everything back to regular. But millennials, I'm gonna post some clips from the article in the episode bio. But they did say that millennials are the ones keeping those types of jobs going. So y'all should thank us.
They should thank us, and I think also what our generation does well is setting boundaries, because technically speaking, if they're not paying you beyond 5 p.m., why are you still in the computer? And I'm not immune to that, because I have had to learn it the hard way, because I used to be one of these people who would go, and I still go above and beyond, but above and beyond with, within normal business hours, because anything beyond that, they're not paying you for it, and there's no guarantee that there will be a return on investment if you do that. there's
Right.
there's just no guarantee that you will receive accolades for doing that, because guess what, if you are staying beyond 5, I'm pretty sure there are 15 other people thinking the same way. So how do you stand out from these people? And so that, again, it goes back to what we were talking about, is really being intentional about what you're trying to accomplish. And if something doesn't jive with you, if something is not a good fit, hey, there's always other options. But again, you don't want to jump. What's the idiom again? Like, you don't want to jump from the frying pan to the fire or something like that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, for sure.
So,
And even that, and then I think about like in what was it, in the Bible, in the book of Daniel, when they were mad at him because he prayed to obviously God, and they wanted him to pray to the other gods, and
mhm,
he worked with the king, so that was work, that was a job. And
yes.
he was like, "No, I can't do that. This is who I pray to at this time, so that won't work." And it's always a hater in these jobs. Even the Bible show you that it's always a hater, because the king was cool with it. Well, they said you have, but then it was one person that went back to the king and said, "Well, didn't you say it's always a hater at them jobs?" And I've learned from firsthand, it's always a hater.
I mean,
So
look at how they persecuted Jesus. They persecuted a man who was preaching about love. So you only imagine, if they've done that to Jesus, why would I expect anything different? And that's the only issue I have with our generation, is this: we have this air of self-importance. And don't get me wrong, you're very important to yourself, but it doesn't
right,
make you immune to pain. It doesn't make you immune to, meeting some of these folks, some of these haters at work. It doesn't make you immune from being around people who may not have, your best interests at heart. So I think, like, it's really like Kendrick Lamar, and I love that song, Staying Humble. It's really about staying humble and continue doing what you need to do, and then just when the bumps come, just pray, in my case, pray to God that he provides guidance so that you can overcome the bump. So
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So now, how to be more authentic at work. So it says the first is to combine authenticity with emotional intelligence. Authenticity is relational, requires being combined with emotional intelligence, respect, listening, understanding. It is essential to take perspective not only for oneself, but also from others. This involves accepting the authenticity of others as well. Another one says base authenticity on core values. Authenticity should reflect fundamentals, aspects of one's identities, beliefs, and perspectives. It's not about superficial choices, but rather about the deeper elements that define a person's character and ethical standpoint.
mhm.
Then it says, determine your threshold of authenticity. Reflect on the level of authentic engagement that benefits your well being. Consider times when you felt fully engaged and authentic. That think about replicating these moments by having vulnerable conversations or sharing more of your identity. Identify environments where you can express more of yourself authentically, which again goes back to what we've been saying. Everything is not for everybody, but you have to use discernment and read the room. My favorite phrase, read the room, which a lot of people don't know how to do.
But how
All right.
can they read the room? Now you piquing my interest. Like, how can we be better at reading the room?
Well, first of all, I think a lot of times because I'm a social and outgoing person, and I think I'm the person who's like get you somebody that can do both. Because I think a lot of the people think they're like if you're social, outgoing, and love to talk, they think that I heard people say, "Well, you need to sit back and observe." I can do both.
Mm,
Now, I'm aware some people cannot. So some people always reveal who they are. You just have to listen to them. You have to pay attention. So when it comes to
exactly.
reading the room, energy, I hate to use the phrase energy, but the energy of people never lies. You can tell if you just pay attention. Some people can fake it, but they do little stuff
Mm.
that gives away how they feeling in that moment. Some have loud, body language, some don't. But it's easy to just kind of just sit back and, introduce yourself, say what you're about, see how people react, see what people react to with other people. If you're in a group setting and people may be doing an introduction, somebody may say something, pay attention to the people who are maybe you can tell kind of being judgy like or gossiping like, or see you can see what they about, or kind of see like who's friends already, especially if you come into an already established environment. See who's already kind of like, oh, those are friends I see. This person's like this. Just kind of play it cool. Don't tell them too much. Just
Mm.
say what needs to be said, and then kind of open up about, oh, I came from here, this is what I did. But also too, sometimes people will tell you their business that they don't care about this so they can get your business. But
These people are very special. Very, very special when they faking the authenticity, and hoping that you will overshare, and then they will go behind your back and gossip about it. No, these people are very special, Izzy.
no, for sure, for sure. Now, final question of the day. Based on your journey and expertise, what will be your key message to young men who strive to balance personal growth with professional development?
I would say, based on my expertise,
You're an
um,
expert.
expert is such a loose term because I feel like I'm a lifelong learner. So I don't think I think like when I think about the word expert, sometimes it gives me the impression that, hey, at a certain point I will become stagnant. But knowing me, I'll never be stagnant. I think that's actually one of like my key messages, for young men, trying to climb up the ladder, is always be a continuous learner, and not just learning from people who are way up there, who have those fancy titles, but it could also be from the person that you meet next door, or being at the bus station or at the train. This world goes around based on how we show up for each other. There's really no me without you, Izzy. There's no you without the next person or the people that you've met today. We're all interconnected, whether we like to say that to ourselves or not, because we have this idea of independence. I'm so independent. Yes, you're independent because there's only one original version of you, but guess what? We're very much interdependent. I depend on someone to drive me from one place to the other. We call that Ubering or lifting. We depend on so many other people to do their jobs in order for us to do ours. And so treat people with respect. Take the time to be kind to folks, not because of who they might become, but just because they're another child of God and they're deserving of that respect. And again, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that all the people, that you meet are going to be good fruits, or good folks. But for those who are not, I would hope that you extend grace, because maybe you met them on a bad day. If it's not them today, it may be you tomorrow. And how would
Mhm.
you want someone to show up for you when you're having a bad day? Um, and I think most importantly, taking the time to know yourself. And don't get me wrong, I'm on this call right now with you, Izzy, and I'm still figuring out things about myself, you know, um, in my 30s, that I didn't know in my 20s. Growth takes time. Growth and development takes time. They always say Rome was not built in a day. Well, that's true. And so is growth. Giving yourself permission to just live life and not stress out about things, because I can tell you there are some things about my career that I stressed out 6 months ago that I'm no longer stressing about, because guess what, life has a funny way of making you stress out about some other things that came up. So it's
Right.
just, you see what I'm trying to say, it's just life is so short. This thing called life goes by quickly like this. And so don't take people for granted. Treat people with respect, and I guarantee you the doors will open. As long as you're walking, as long as you have breath, you will make it. You will make it to your destination, whatever that looks like for you. And I think finally, define what success is to you too, because success may look very different from all of us. Success may be for one person to have that fancy title, and there's nothing wrong with that. But another person, success may just be, you know what, at least I have a job and I have a roof over my head, and
Right.
that's success. So take the time to know thyself, and all will be well. And I'm not just saying that to your audience or to you, Izzy, but I'm also saying that to myself too, because in order to teach one, you got to teach yourself first. So I've taught that stuff to myself. I've walked that path, and I'm still walking that path, and I'm just
Yeah.
imparting that knowledge and wisdom to you all today.
All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, y'all. So for the question challenge this week, what are your intentions for the coming week to prioritize self-care by continuously choosing not to engage in certain activities? Again, whatever that is for you, prefer for more so work wise, but I mean it could be personal too. Maybe somebody, you said I'm not drinking this month, and your friend's trying to get you to come to the bar, and you don't have enough self-discipline to not go to a bar and not drink. So everybody can't do that,
Right.
even though the bars have the best food, but everybody can't do that. So
Truth.
those are just some examples. So that's it. Anything else you want to add today before you go?
I don't have anything else to add. I think that's more of a question for you. Do you have anything else that you want to ask me? Anything that you were able to glean from our conversation today? Because I think when we first came in, like there was an energy that we came in with, right? But how are we coming out of the meeting? What's the energy that we leaving with?
So I think that we're leaving with the energy. I mean, it's always, for the most part, when I have these interviews, they're always positive, right? But I think this one we definitely are leaving with more of a desire to not just be so caught up in self in these situations, because a lot of times these episodes are for that young millennial man, but it's also for them to how can they be of use to other people? Because a lot of times these episodes are like you can take and learn some things and internalize for you. But I think this episode is also leaving with the mindset of this is stuff I can internalize but use to help other people. And
Mhm.
I think especially in the conversation of being your authentic self, which is funny because it's about being your authentic self and professionally, and you're leaving out with things that you can do to benefit others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm guessing you want to hear how I'm leaving this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm leaving this conversation feeling grateful because again, isn't it ironic? We had an interview about young men, and the advice, the guidance is coming from a woman. And that's pretty significant because we have a different lens on how we raise, future generations of men. And so the fact that you brought me to have this conversation with you is so special to me, because I live with my brother, and this is someone that relies on me. He leans on me, I lean on him for guidance. And I think that it was truly a blessing to be on the show and to have this discussion and to connect with your audience. I'm hoping that this won't be the first and the last conversation we have, but I had a blast for sure.
I'm thankful that you did. I'm good. I'm glad to hear that. All right, y'all. So that is it for this week's episode. Tune in next week. We got another great guest and another great interview. P.S.A. signing out. Always remember, keep your head up like your neck hurt. Remember who you are. Make your mind up. Don't let it make you. And I love us for